Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item of the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the phone number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted below the screen at the live stream page of oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask for your name, the item that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference, and when the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, please press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application, answer any questions that may arise. A 5-minute time frame will be provided for each presentation. You will also be asked your full name and address for the record, and any submission beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record. Any presentations will be given a maximum of 5 minutes, and all remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond those 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant agent will then be provided for a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly the proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, agent, and any person who has filed written requests for such notice. The last day of the appeal for the decision in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Only the applicant, specified persons, or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, Bill 23 legislation called the More Homes Built Faster Act was amended in the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in the hearing are to be courteous to and respectful to the members of the committee, town staff, and any other person participating in this electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. Tonight we have one regret, Mr. John Hardcastle, a declaration of pecuniary interests. Okay, I see none, thank you. Requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. If you are in attendance of the meeting and you wish to defer an application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you into the panel to speak to the committee. Madam Secretary Treasurer, let me know.
I've moved Curtis Van Keulen into the meeting.
Okay, very well.
Good evening, members of the committee, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Van Keulen.
We're here before you to request deferral for our application tonight for 169 Pinehurst Avenue. We wish to work with staff to go over their concerns as per their report they issued.
Okay, very well. There were two requests for attendance by Mr. Gary Sprules and Mr. Tony Lee. If they are in attendance, please note that if this deferral is granted, you will be given further notice when the application is before us, and you will be able to submit your request for attendance at that time. I will also note that there are 3 letters of support in your favor, Mr. Van Kulen. We have those on record.
Thank you.
Members, all those in support of a deferral. Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
I've moved
Anyone
Matthew.
else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, I've moved Matthew Rabeau into the meeting.
Hello, good evening, council members. I too, similar to my colleague Curtis, we have seen the staff report and recommendations that there may have been a couple variances missed. We want to iron that out with planning staff and further discussions with them in hopes to get their support, as well as hopefully clear some of the variances that we're asking for.
Okay, Mr. Rabeau, you're here for CAV 084 of 2023 at 496 Chartwell Road, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Thank you, council members. Have a great evening.
Evening. Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time.
All right, we will take the first item on our agenda this evening is CAV 082 of 2023 at Pebble Ridge Place, 53 Pebble Ridge Place.
If you could please advise if there's anybody interested. If they raise their hand, I can move them into the meeting.
Okay, will the agent or applicant please raise their hand for CAV 082 of 2023 at 53 Pebble Ridge Place? I have Miss Arlene Beaumont here listed as the agent.
Yes, I've moved her into the meeting.
Arlene Beaumont here, agent for the homeowners. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, great.
Do you have access to your camera, Ms. Beaumont?
I do. So as I said, Arlene Beaumont, Outford and Associates, we're the agents for the owners of 53 Pebble Ridge Place. I did send through a very brief presentation. Hopefully they have it.
Yes, the staff will put it on right now.
Fantastic. Thank you. You can go to the second slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're here this evening for two variances. The first is for residential floor area ratio of 31.49%, whereas 29% is permitted. So that is 34 square meters over the permitted, and a dwelling height of 9.5 meters, whereas 9 meters is permitted. If you could go to the if you go to the third slide, please, there's a rendering of the dwelling. Okay. I guess I can't get to the third slide. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the proposed dwelling. As you can see, the architect has been very thoughtful about how he's done the roof line. He's got, the roof line is not uniform. There's articulations in both the roof line and in the facade of the dwelling, which serve to, break the facade down. It doesn't appear as large or as tall. Next slide, please. So as I said, facade has been broken down into smaller elements that reduce the appearance of height and massing. A variance for lot coverage is not required, so we're just asking for residential floor area. There's no existing dwellings on Pebble Ridge Place, so it's sort of a clean slate at this point. And we have been keeping an eye on the other dwellings that have come up through committee. Our proposal is very much in keeping with what else has been approved for this street. And we feel that the design is really in keeping, and the variances are in keeping with others on the street. And as the planning report notes, this particular plan of subdivision is subject to architectural control guidelines, and planning does feel that the proposal meets those guidelines. And I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Ms. Beaumont. Any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in with interest in this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I see no one at this time.
Very well, then we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, together with the presentation by the owner's agent, planning staff report, the absence of letters of opposition or support, in my opinion, and I'm satisfied that the variance is minor, conforms to the tests on the Planning Act, it would have no negative impact on the future neighbors or existing neighbors behind. Therefore, I put forth a motion that the application as applied for be approved, subject to the condition that that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated June 7th, 2023 as submitted, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if the building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you. Is there discussion on these recommendations? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Application CAV 083 of 2023 at 212 King Street. Again, this is CAV 083 2023 at 212 King Street. Anyone interested in this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to provide further instructions to join the video conference. I will note that we have 12 letters of support and 6 letters of opposition for this application.
I've moved Terry Martino into the meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Martino. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Terry Martino. I'm an architect with Grenweiss Architect and Associates, and we are the agents for the owners at 212 King. Our application to the committee this evening proposes to construct a new 2-story addition with an attached garage, existing heritage structure, subject to 2 minor variants. The subject property, as you in the site plan, is a square lot. It's one of the originals under the registered plan 1 in the town of Oakville, measuring 104 by 104. From a design perspective, briefly, and in consultation with heritage staff and members of the heritage committee, including chair and vice chair, on 2 separate occasions meeting on the property, our proposal maintains the original 1.5-story brick portion of the dwelling, which is shown hatched, located to the north along King Street there, shown hatched on the site plan. The retained heritage portion, and this is important, is very small, modest structure, about 18 feet wide, 23 feet deep, and has a height at the peak of the roof of only 22 feet 6 inches. In looking at the Heritage Conservation District plan, the corner of George and King is identified in the plan as a prominent corner. If I could have the northwest perspective from our application document right on the screen, please.
We only have access to your presentation. So do you know what page that would be on your presentation, Mr. Martino?
No, it's not in the presentation. It's
Yeah,
in the
we only have what's,
plan.
yeah, we only have what's available at your, as your presentation.
You don't have the perspectives that were submitted with the application available. As
No, we do.
the site plan that you're showing now.
No, we don't. We just have your presentation available.
Okay, thank you. Anyhow, the corner of George Street and King Street was identified as a significant corner with vistas to the lake and the south. The proposal recognizes this feature and maintains a very wide flankage along George Street. The permitted flankage under the zoning bylaws on the site plan drawing is 3.5 meters, and our proposal is 8.43. Existing detached garage, which is located presently in the south corner of the lot, has been relocated to the northeast unused portion. This garage is 1 story in height. It is well set back from the street, 8.8 meters. It is actually set back from the front face of the heritage portion, retained heritage portion of the house, by 6.5. Existing additions to the heritage portion are proposed to be demolished. If I could have page 27 of the presentation. So let me just back up the top drawing. You see there's the north elevation. You see the proposed attached garage that is 1 story in height. That window and the gable is decorative and sort of an attic space. You see how that is, as I said, set back 8.8 meters street, well back from the existing residence, as well as it is much lower. The proposal is to effectively demolish the existing additions which were added to the heritage home over the years. Which you can see in the west elevation below on that drawing, as indicated in the red outline. You can also see the existing car garage. We're reconstructing the two-story addition. Of note, the new addition floor is dropped, and so it slopes or follows the street line. Removal of the garage allows for additional open space along the George Street frontage. The new addition is generally, in terms of depth, in line with existing massing that is present on the site today. The inclusion of the one-story porches, the retention that you can see on the left side there, as well as wraparound porch addresses the corner at the corner of George Street, William Street. I'd like to note for committee information, the second floor space and the proposed addition is built into the roof. All the bedrooms on the second floor have sloped ceilings. They have knee walls that are 6 feet. And so the second floor space is really built in. With respect to the height, the peak of the proposed addition, 6 feet 7 inches higher than the drawing there, drawing from the red line. So 6 feet 7 inches taller. As you see, then we drawn in the maximum height as permitted by the zoning bylaw, which in this case, in this zone under special district 11, is 10.5 to the mid. The proposed addition is well under the permitted height, and the secretary goes down to the land of the with respect to the variance request, the first variance is coverage. The estimated coverage is 28.63%, where 25% left. For information purposes, covered porches contribute 5.48% total lot coverage, and the dwelling itself is 23. We 0.14. We believe that the covered porches are characteristic of the neighborhood. They obviously help to break down the scale and the set of important setting. Second variance is for the residential floor area, requesting 36.45%, and we have submitted that other developments, both new and old in the neighborhood. My planning group, that is part of the application, I think, breaks down the number. 11 properties, immediate area, residential floor areas, and or higher. As mentioned previously, much of the additional floor area, the second floor, built into the roof as per guidelines on the town of Oakville residential guidelines for stable residents. Proposal meets or exceeds all the setbacks that are required. As I said, very large blanket. Additional setbacks south, and it is well under the. Finally, my clients have consulted widely. If I could have page 26 of the presentation. And this is reference to see the property 1 King Street is had red. 12 letters of support for the application. I've reviewed planning staff comments, particularly their comments, in which they proposal by other developments recognize that it applies with heritage conservation district plan. I believe that the proposal meets 4 tests of the Planning Act for minor variance. Submit proposal conforms to the Heritage Conservation Plan, the guidelines for stable residential communities is minor, and it represents good development.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. Are there any questions or items of clarifications of Mr. Martino at this time? Mr. Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to get an understanding of what is going to be demolished and what is going to be kept. The building, or the two-story, I think it's a brick building that fronts onto King Street with the porch on the George Street side, that's going to be retained. And then most of the existing building to the south of that is going to be demolished. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct, sir. The 1.5 story brick portion, which faces King Street, is to be retained, as well as the porch.
And do you know how old that portion is? Obviously, the portion that fronts onto King Street is the oldest portion, as I understand. What about this other portion that's going to be demolished? Any idea of the age of that? Is it? I assume the garage is relatively new.
Through you, Madam Chair, the garage is very new, probably built in the 90s. But the barn addition, or the two-story addition, which goes to the back today of the existing brick home, is quite old. It was, I believe, probably dates around 1890 or 1900. But as I said in my presentation, in consultation with Heritage staff, as well as Heritage committee members, the significance and what is written in the Heritage Conservation District Plan references the 1.5 story brick portion of the house and refers to the larger barn additions that we put on later. And it was considered that there's not significant heritage value.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. Any further items of clarification or questions? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, has anyone called in with interest for this application?
Yes, I believe.
Anyone in attendance who would like to speak to this application, please raise your hand.
I believe we have the owner of the property is on the phone.
Okay. Did he have, Mr. Martino, are you aware of whether the property owner had something further to add?
I'm not aware, Madam Chair, no, but I believe they tuned in. I think they may.
Have you invited them in, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, they're on the screen. They're on the phone. Looks like a phone handle.
Okay, I can't see everyone. Just give me a second.
Like a receiver, sorry.
Oh, okay. Ms. Brown?
They need to unmute themselves.
I believe you have to press *6 in order for you to
Hello?
unmute yourself. Hi, how are you?
I apologize. We have a delay on our end. My name is Katie Brown. I'm a resident of property at 212 King, and I'm here with my husband, Dustin Brown.
Okay, welcome.
You are. We just wanted to thank the committee for considering our application. We have worked closely with the architects at Grenweiss, as well as in consultation with Heritage, and just want to reiterate that we have taken what we believe to be steps to ensure that this design fits within the overall feel and character of the neighborhood, while also satisfying our requirements and what we would like to see from the property from a how we envision using the property going forward.
Very well, thank you for your submission. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I see no one at this time. However, Madam Chair, if you could please read out the names of the support and opposition, just so people watching from home would know that we received their letters.
Sure.
Just read their names out. Thank you.
The letters of support, there's 12 of them from a Bob Aziz, Arthur Peltonoma, Sarita Peltonoma, Bruce McDougall, Kurt and Sarah Cumming, Grace Kidney, Alex and Scott and Tom Scott, Claire McWilliam, Stephen Lucas and Irene Lobrook, Gregory Hitchman, Allison Petrie, Mary Catherine Atchison, John McDonald, Mark and Petra Arenas. The letters of opposition on hand are from a Mark and Sarah Rocken, Jane Jane Hawkrig, and Jamie McRae, Anita McKay, Jennifer and Scott McDonald, Stephen and Linda Hod, and a Catherine M. Hurley. So, anyone with interest in this application can call 905-815-6095 and we'll be happy to hear your comments.
Okay, Madam Chair, I don't see anyone at this time.
Very well, then we'll take the matter into committee. Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I note, as has been mentioned, 12 letters of support for this application, including town heritage staff. With that, we've seen 6 letters of opposition, which generally claim that this proposal is out of character with the neighborhood and the heritage district. Yet when I walk King Street from end to end and other streets in this neighborhood, I believe this application is very consistent with what has happened and is happening in this district. There are numerous examples of retention of existing heritage structures with more modern additions, including a number with attached garages, yet designed in a very sensitive way to blend into the area. Madam Chair, with those comments, I would move that this application be approved as applied for, finding it meets the test of the Planning Act. I do not see an impact being caused by this. I would make that approval subject to issuance of a major heritage permit for the proposed dwelling to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, that the additions be constructed in accordance with the final approved heritage permit, again to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the building permit issues within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Your application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Martino.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Have a great evening.
CAV 085 of 2023 at 318 Queen Mary Drive. Again, this is CAV 085 of 2023 at 318 Queen Mary Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. We do have one letter of support from a Thesori John with a petition of 60 signatures supporting. And I have a request to attend from a Malcolm A. Ramsey, who is the agent for this file.
Okay, I'm just going to move them into the meeting.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I've moved Claudia Davis Ewan into the meeting.
Very well. Good evening, Ms. Ewan.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Do you have a presentation? Yes, okay. The staff has just put it on.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'd like to start by thanking and welcoming, if any are present, the staff of the town of Oakville who assisted us with this process. This evening, I have with me our Reverend Fran Wallace, who is the priest in charge at St. Aidan's, and Mr. Richard Bradley, who's our longtime angel member at St. Aidan's, and also Mr. Malcolm Ramsey, who is a forever and special friend at St. Aidan's. I present this evening on behalf of the incumbent and church wardens of St. Aidan's Church. Next slide, please. Our next slide just has an overview of our presentation for this evening. And though it looks plenty, we'd go through it quickly as the members of the committee have received most of the documents in advance. Next slide, please. St. Aidan's Church has served Oakville's Curve Village and West River community for over 70 years. Over many of those years, our parish has provided space for daycare, nursery, and childcare services. In 2010, with the help of a Trillium grant and local donations, we undertook major renovations to make our space more accessible and functional for a wider range of community-based activities. There's clearly a need in the community for daycare. Our daycare tenant, Positive Minds Daycare, can fulfill more of those needs by slightly expanding its services. There are families who are desperately awaiting the approval of this variance application. The decision tonight on this application will have implications not only for the viability of our church, but also for the lives of at least 8 families who are waiting to use the daycare. The purpose of this application is simply to fulfill the need of daycare in our community. For this reason, the Town of Oakville zoning bylaws requires 1 parking space to be provided on site. St. Aidan's simply cannot afford this costly, complicated groundwork. Our recourse is then this application. A struggling nonprofit organization should not be required to pay $4,000 for less than half a parking space. Barriers such as this stand in the way of our serving the community. It steals our energy and our efforts, our time, and most critically, our financial resources. That money should really be spent to keep our doors open, keep our lights on, and of course, to welcome in members of our community. Next slide, please. I hope everyone can see that. I'm kind of grateful that the committee already received the larger version, but I just got on this page here, the corner, it's the same drawing, but just one a little bit cleaner. You will see in the bottom corner, left-hand side, the space in which we're talking about. This is the size of the main floor of the church. Currently, the daycare uses downstairs. The expansion that they're looking for is just the rental of the room in that corner on the bottom left-hand side. Next page, please. On our next, the next picture that we've included with the presentation is a picture of Washington Street, which is the corner of Queen Mary Drive in Washington. The reason why that's important is because there is a public parking located right on that street. It's less than a 10-minute walk to get to the church from there. So parking hasn't been an issue in the past. Below, we've included a letter of support from Positive Minds Daycare. Though it's small there, I won't go through the whole letter, but it's important to note that we're very fortunate to have such a high quality daycare using our premises. The letter of support that you have is from Mrs. John, who is the owner and director, and they've been operating since 2019. I'd like to highlight that in the letter, she mentions that high quality daycare has been shown to deliver amazing benefits for communities and for kids. She also states that affordable quality childcare is a game changer for reducing and eliminating poverty because it allows for marginalized families with greater access to employment and educational opportunities. She mentioned this in a letter, but it's a fact. There's no one on the committee can deny that. What was striking to me is in the letter of support, what was new to us, and we were just excited to learn, is she mentioned that Positive Minds Daycare has entered into an agreement with Halton Region to participate in the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system. Participating in the system will make the childcare that they provide more affordable for families with children. So under the strong leadership of Positive Mind and the Google reviews and testimonials that I took the time to read up on, you will see that your decision will support families in our community. Next slide, please. We are fortunate to have the backing and support of those signatures. In the essence of time, we're not going to read all the names, but at the end, should we need to, we can go back to those names. These names include people who've been in the neighborhood for a long time. It also includes people who are new to the neighborhood, people who used the nursery in the past, people who are enrolled and or friends of people who have their kids currently enrolled in Positive Minds. They were happy and eager to sign. And we even had individuals who asked that if we need anyone to speak on our behalf, that they would be more than willing to do so. So we'll scroll past the next, I think, 4 pages, because this is just, I've just included the list of the names on there.
Miss Ewan, you're much past your 5-minute mark, but I've given you that courtesy. I was just wondering if you are almost wrapping up.
Thank you so much. I'm on the last page. Thank you, Madam Chair. And we included the staff report that the committee members had a chance to review. And we'll note that in there, the staff recognize that the groups utilizing St. Aidan's Church currently, we rely on street parking. They've also mentioned that this variance is minor in nature and appropriate for the development of the site, as there are no negative impacts on abutting properties or the streetscape. The one thing is we are in full agreement and appreciation of the report. However, we're requesting the removal of the conditions that are mentioned. Condition number 1 asks that the proposed daycare expansion be constructed in general accordance with the plans submitted with the minor variance application heard before the committee. And that particular condition is irrelevant simply because that no construction will be done. No construction will be taking place as the room already exists. And the second condition asks that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. And as for the same reason, the number 1, no expiry date is needed, as no permit is required, as no construction will be taking place. So in conclusion, this is an important community decision for this committee. We certainly believe that this minor variance application meets the criteria for favorable approval, and it supports the ongoing appropriate use of our property, and it maintains the intent and purpose of both the official plan and the zoning bylaw. We thank you, the committee, and the staff for the time, attention, and the opportunity to present this evening. And we welcome any questions at this time and ask Madam Chair that you allow Mr. Ramsey or Reverend Fran Wallace, if she's on, or Mr. Bradley, Richard Bradley, to assist in any of the questions that may come on board. And again, thank you for your time on behalf of the incumbent and church wardens of St. Aidan's Church. Thank you.
With respect to your request with regards to the conditions, I'd like to hear from planning staff. Usually we tie the approval of the variance application to the plans submitted. So that should not be a problem. If the plans submitted are going to stay as such and there's no construction, then it really makes no difference to you. This is also protection for the variances that we've approved, that they meet the plans that are attached to them. But I'd like to hear from planning staff.
Yes, thank you through you, Chair. As there is no building permit required in this scenario, the conditions could be removed. We didn't.
You're satisfied?
Yes, we would be satisfied with removal of the conditions.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Ewan at this time or from planning staff? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the planning staff, just trying to get an understanding of what is going on here. Is this like a legal non-conforming situation where the church doesn't have on-site parking because it existed before it was required?
Yes, through you, Chair. My understanding is that the church, as you mentioned, existed prior to the requirement for this level of on-site parking. So the requirement of one parking space is triggered solely just by the additional daycare use. Aside from that, the church is legal non-conforming.
But shouldn't it be, and just correct me if I'm wrong, sorry. In the zoning bylaw, it says for a church, you need one parking space for every 5 people that can sit in the pew or something to that effect. And then one parking space for every so many square feet of added area. So nothing's been added to the building, but we're requiring additional parking spaces. Is that because the requirement for a daycare is greater than the requirement for the kitchen and other areas of a church? That's the logic of it, not to say that.
Yes, through you, Chair. So the requirement is for the daycare use specifically. So it's because although that area is existing, the use of the area will be changing to a daycare. And that is what triggers the requirement for an additional parking space.
Okay, and that zoning, community use, small range of community uses are permitted. If we were to approve this, and something were to happen that the church wanted to be converted to, let's say, a private school, which is allowed in the zoning, that's a change in use, so they'd be looking at a new rate of parking spaces. So in other words, you don't have to worry about that situation. It would be taken care of if it were to happen.
Yes, through you, Chair. The parking space requirements are based off of the use proposed. And therefore, if a different use was being proposed for the space, then we would check whether it conforms with the parking space requirements again, and likely a variance would be required, or really a variance would be required in that scenario, or they would have to put parking on site.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any other questions, items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
No one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. We'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Ms. Yu, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on my review of the package, including the application materials, and the staff reports, as well as hearing the presentation done by the agent of the applicant. In my opinion, this application can be considered as minor, and it meets all the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So as such, I would like to move a motion forward with the approval with no conditions.
Very
Thank you,
well.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ewan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the
Have a good
committee.
evening.
Thank you.
Application CAV 087 of 2023 at 2132 Devon Road. Again, this is application CAV 2132, no, sorry, CAV 087 of 2023 at 2132 Devon Road. I have Mr. Jason Heather here as the listed agent.
I'm just moving him into the meeting. Okay, he's been moved into the meeting, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Heather.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Jason Heater, HDS Dwell, on behalf of my clients at 2132 Devon Road. I'm in front of you seeking 3 variances to the current zoning bylaw to permit the rebuild on this property. Just a quick note, I had canvassed the local surrounding neighborhood. We have 1 letter of support on file and another that was sent in and received a little bit later yesterday afternoon. No letters in opposition and no objection from planning staff on this application. So I'll just run through.
Mr. Heather, are you aware that planning staff have identified a missing variance and encroachment into the rear yard?
Yeah, I was just going to go there. That window actually, that window and window well are just incorrectly represented. It does not actually exist. In the basement plans that were submitted, there is no window there. So there will be no issue with respect to that, and that will be dealt with at building permit.
Very well. Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly run through. If I could go to page 3, please. This is a uniquely shaped pie lot that is on a corner, an arced corner on this street. It gets severely pinched in due to its location. All of the surrounding lots next to it, behind it, and across from it are normal rectangular shapes. This is the smallest lot in the neighborhood. We comply with all side yards, rear yards, and height requirements. And I did a quick analysis of the local property areas. If you go to page 4, just on the left-hand side there, our lot's the one that's scribbled there in purple. You can see the shape of it. Our lot is on average in that neighborhood about 245 square meters smaller, given the shape and condition on the corner. I do understand that we are not to speak to precedents as the right of approval, but I would like to speak to a house that was approved just up the street in relationship to our home on a more standard lot. This home, were it on that lot with the same frontage, would have a coverage that was just over 40% or just above what is permitted. That home at 2192 was approved at 41.1%. If I could go into page 5, much of the additional floor area is located in this bedroom suite above a garage. This is a dormered element on the front elevation. It's a single-story roof line. All of the floor area contained within that element is tucked within the roof planes and not visible from the street. We have further step back portions of the second floor and the great room at the rear to make it feel more like a 1.5 story structure to better transition to the adjacent neighborhoods or neighbors. The next variance is for lot coverage. And again, this is I won't repeat myself, but it's a very similar rationale with respect to the lot size and the unique shape and the way that this lot is pinched in on the rear. If I could go to page 6. I've just outlined 3 areas that contribute to the additional coverage. The single-story open covered porch on the front. Again, a single-story element, just 2 porch columns, no enclosure. There's a small second floor bathroom that's cantilevered on the second floor only, so no foundation walls in that area. And again, it complies with side yard. And then there's a single-story breakfast bump out bay at the rear of the property. Those elements contribute to the additional coverage. And again, if I was to use this house on a more standard rectangular lot like the others in the neighborhood, again, we would be just over 27% coverage, which is very similar to others approved in the vicinity. The last variance, if I could just quickly jump to page 7, is for that small little red portion on the front. It is, again, that single-story covered porch element. The building face itself and the garage comply with the front yard setback. It's really that single-story element that push us out into the variance condition. Again, as noted, we are aware of the development engineering comments. It will be dealt with that building permit. That window does not exist. We certainly feel the variances are minor in nature. We do have letters of support for this, and I'd be open for any questions whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Heather. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in with interest in this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Not at this time, but if we could read out the person where we did receive the letter of support from.
I have one letter of support from a Philip Murray. You, Mr. Heather, have other ones?
We have a letter of support from Wafiq Khalil at 2192 Devon Road.
Very well, thank you. Okay, if there are no interested parties waiting to speak to the committee, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd be pleased to move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I'd note that the yard setback is extremely minor, and although we're dealing with an increase in GFA, we're dealing with a situation where we're having a smaller lot, but the end result will be a dwelling that's similar to those in the rest of the neighborhood. And I would note that there's 2 letters of support, no letters of objection. Noting the staff comments on the window well encroachment and Mr. Heater's comments that that's a mistake on the plan, I would make that approval subject to the 2-story dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plans dated with the plans dated April 11th, 2023, subject to the applicant submitting a revised site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning to remove the window well encroachment, and that the approval expires if a building permit hasn't issued within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, committee members.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Application CAV 088 of 2023 at 261 Vinova Court. Again, it's 088 of 2023 at 261 Vinova Court. If you are interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095.
Me, I've moved Greg Johnson into the meeting.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Do you have a presentation, sir? Yeah, okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Do I see it on the screen? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yes, we just purchased the home on Vinova, and we want to update it and enhance the look from the street. So we have an issue with the coverage. The green area is right now is an open courtyard with a kind of a greenhouse type of glass roof over it. And we want to remove that and put a proper shingled framed roof over top and extend the front door closer to the front of the house. It's sunk too far back. And we'd also like to punch out the front wall of the living room so it lines up with the garage, just architecturally to make the front of the house look better. The existing coverage right now is 32%, and we're looking for a variance to go to 33.2%. That's really all I have as far as the presentation. If there's any questions, be happy to answer.
Very well, thank you, sir. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Johnson at this time? I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Very well, then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Dickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, the site plan, and my site visit, together with the planning staff's report, in fact, there are no letters of opposition from the neighbors. It's my opinion that the variance is minor and conforms to the 4 tests of the Planning Act and would have no negative impact on the neighbors. Therefore, I put forth a motion that the application as applied for be approved, subject to the condition that the proposed additions be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated April 28th, 2023, as submitted, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision. The building permit is not being issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Application CAV 089 of 2023 at 76 Pebble Ridge Place. Again, it's CAV 089 of 2023 at 76 Pebble Ridge Place. We have a letters of support from Mr. Anis Hassan and Shazia Anis. I believe it's Miss Arlene Beaumont again.
Yes,
for this
I've
application.
Madam Chair, I've moved her into the meeting.
Good afternoon, good evening again, Arlene Beaumont, Outfit and Associates. We are the agents for the owners of 76 Pebble Ridge. First of all, I'd like to say we are in receipt of planning comment. And we understand planning does have some concerns with the driveway variance. So we would request that the driveway variance, that's variance number 1, be withdrawn. The property owner has agreed that he will redesign the driveway to comply with the bylaw. So that leaves variance number 2 and 3. Variance number 2 is for garage area of 59.92 square meters, whereas 56 square meters is permitted, and the residential floor area of 32.36, whereas 29% is permitted. Could we go to the third slide in, please? Perfect. So this is the main floor plan. I just wanted to illustrate in the garage, we have some elements that require a little bit of additional space. So we have 2 sets of stairs. One stair leads to the mud room, the mud laundry room, and the other stair leads to the main foyer of the house. We also have a door coming in from the side yard. So if you put 2 cars in there, plus you have to be able to get around to these elements of the garage, you do need a little bit of extra room. Next slide, please. And this is the front of the home. As you can see from the street, it looks to be a standard 2-car garage, no bigger than any other. The other thing I wanted to point out is, again, the architect has used, has broken down the roof line into smaller elements. He's used a number of different materials to break the facade down into smaller elements to reduce the visual appearance of massing. Next slide, please. So again, the variance for floor area is consistent with other variances approved on Pebble Ridge Place. The variety of materials and the way the architect has broken down the front of the dwelling into different elements does help to reduce the appearance of mass. Again, we're not requiring a variance for lot coverage, and there are no existing homes on Pebble Ridge Place. So this is certainly compatible with other homes being constructed and other variances that have been approved in this neighborhood. Happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Dickey?
Sorry, I was looking at the dates. Based on my review of this application, the site plans and building elevation, together with the planning report and the new situation regarding the driveway, my opinion, these variances are minor and conforms to the 4 tests of the Planning Act and would have no negative impact on the neighbors. Therefore, I put forth a motion that the application as applied for accepting for the driveway be approved, subject to the following conditions, right? That the construction of the house be built in general accordance with the site plan dated got it. Site plan was dated March. Both of the plans seem to be March of 2023. And that the approval expires 2 years from the date of decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Sorry.
Mr. Dickey, I would suggest that we also, no, that's fine. I would suggest that we also add a condition that the driveway be brought into conformity according and to this the new plans be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, just so that we're tying our approval to plans that have stricken variance 1 from them, and that conditions is reflected as such.
Okay, I first of all, I need to, when the first condition from Mr. Dickey, when he's saying that the construction, I would like to change that to say that the proposed dwelling be constructed as opposed to just the construction, because we need it to be something what is being constructed. So for the first condition, that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated March 2023. I just need confirmation that that is correct.
Ms. Beaumont, can you tell us what the date on your plans are? I can't see it here. Or perhaps planning staff can have that.
Yes,
Sorry,
through you,
Go
Chair,
ahead.
it seems to be March 1st, 2023.
Okay, so that's March 1st, 2023 is the first confirmation. The site plan.
And that's just for site plan. He only asked, Mr. Dickey, the member, only asked for the site plan. So now it'll be the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated March 1st, 2023. That's the condition I received from Mr. Dickey.
And what are the elevations? Site plan and elevations.
Okay,
Sorry,
that wasn't in his.
The site plan is actually dated March 15th and the elevations are dated March 1st, 2023.
Okay. So now we have both.
So I'm changing Mr. Dickey's condition to add elevations. And they were which date? Sorry?
March 1st is the elevations, March 15th is the site plan.
Okay.
So that we're in general accordance with the conditions that we usually put in.
I know, but I need, whatever was spoken at the meeting is what I need to put on the decision.
Mr. Dickey, are you okay with those changes?
Yes, yeah, I checked. I mean, yeah, I see that those dates are the correct date for the site plan and the elevation.
But provided that the driveway is brought, is the driveway variance is removed, so then the driveway will be in accordance with the bylaw.
So just because we're removing the driveway, we're removing that variance.
Yes,
So
but
we're
it's
not
still on the
speaking to it.
drawings. But it's still on the drawings as such, so we have to either make it to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning so that.
Okay, let me get the first condition down, and then you can tell me what you want for the second one. So the first condition will be that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated March 15th, 2023, and elevation drawings dated March 1st, 2023. I just need confirmation that's the first condition that has been put to this decision, and then if you would like to go to the next condition, and then I can write down whatever you would like for the next condition.
Is that okay, Mr. Dickey?
Yes.
Okay.
And we just work on the driveway aspect of it. And you suggest, Madam Chair, you suggested some wording, which is fine with me.
I suggested that the driveway variance, since it's being removed, that it just be shown in accordance on the plans, and they can submit new plans to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning showing such.
Okay, but can you please word it, and then I have to copy what you're saying. So how would you like that condition to read, please?
Could I just suggest that maybe the driveway be brought into conformity with zoning bylaw 2014-014 as amended? and the new plans be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight.
Okay, you're gonna have to run it by me a little bit slower. I've got that the driveway be brought into conformity with bylaw.
The zoning bylaw 2014
Okay,
dash
sorry.
014
Okay,
as amended.
okay.
And the revised plans be submitted.
Sorry, and the
to-
revised plans?
Be submitted
Sorry, and. Thank you. To the satisfaction of the Director of Planning? I'm sorry, is that the next part or not?
Yes, that was the end of my suggestion, but committee members, please adjust as you see fit.
Okay, so I'll read it out and then everybody can let me know whether I've got it correctly. So the next condition would be that the driveway be brought into conformity with zoning bylaw 2014-014 as amended, and the revised plans be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
I'm okay with that. Everyone else? Okay. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 038 of 2023, deferred from April the 5th of 2023 at 248 Gloucester Avenue. Again, that's CAV 038 of 2023 at 248 Gloucester Avenue.
Okay, Madam Chair, I've moved Mr. Kieran into the meeting.
Very well, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Go ahead, Mr. Kieran, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joris Kieran. I am the agent for this application. My office is at 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31 in Oakville. As stated earlier, this application was initially brought forth in April and was deferred to address some concerns raised by planning staff. So we have addressed those concerns, which I will go through briefly in this slide presentation. The staff report speaks for itself, I think, quite clearly in that the main concern was the house, the proposed dwelling was too far forward in the opinion of staff, and we have moved it back approximately 2 meters, and that really was the main concern. So we've done that. There was also a variance for a window well and a large window well, which has been completely removed now from the proposal. So that variance is no longer being requested. So on slide 1, that's just basically demonstrate the position of the house now, and showing it further back, and also the setback, front yard setbacks on either side as a comparison. Slide 2, please. So this is just to identify the areas that are the main contributors to the lot coverage overage. And we have the front porch. The rear porch is the biggest contributor. That's an open structure. It's partially covered with the second floor. The front portico is essentially a 1-story element. And then we have the garage, which is expanded slightly in the rear to provide additional storage, which actually forms variance number 2, but it also contributes to lot coverage because of, you know, the footprint increase associated with that. So that's just identifying that. And then if we go to slide 3, please. In the revised plans, we have added a small roof element across the middle, which is highlighted on this drawing. And that serves to break up the massing a little bit further from the original design. And again, this was to address staff's comments and to satisfy their concern about the massing. So that's different from the previous application. Staff has no objections to these variances, as the members are aware. And we also had 3 letters of support in the original application, which we feel are still valid. We did have them renewed, but I only was able to round them up this afternoon. So it was too late to formally submit them, but they are still in effect, those 3 letters of support. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called in with interest to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. We'll entertain a motion. Who would like to move one? Go ahead, Ms. Yu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on my review of this application, including the application package materials and the staff reports and the original support letters, as well as the updated information from the agent. So in my opinion, this application can be considered as minor and meets all the board tests under Planning Act. As such, I'd like to move the motion forward to approve this application with 2 conditions. One, the 2-story detached dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the site plan dated May 5th, 2023, and the elevation drawings dated May 5th, 2023, April 19, 2023, and April 14, 2023, as submitted. Condition number 2, the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Yu. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. Good night.
CAV 031 of 2023 at 384 Ashbury Road. Again, it's CAV 031 of 2023 deferred from March the 22nd at 384 Ashbury Road.
Hello
Good
again,
evening,
Madam.
Ms. Beaumont.
Good evening. Arlene Beaumont, we're Outred and Associates, we're the agents for the owners of 384 Ashbury. We were here in March and requested deferral at that time to allow us some room and time to address staff comments and concerns about the massing scale of the proposed dwelling. I did send through a little brief presentation. Could you go to the 3rd slide in, please? So originally we were requesting a variance for lot coverage of 45%. We've now brought that back to 43.47%, which represents a reduction of 10.94 square meters or 117 square feet. At least as importantly, the architect has revised the exterior elevations and he's eliminated 2-story windows and incorporated some horizontal elements that help to reduce the appearance of massing. And he's also introduced stone on the facade as another material that also helps to break up the elevation and break the elevation into smaller elements. Next slide, please. So on the left is what we submitted in March. And as you can see, there's been quite a change in the appearance of the home with the addition of the stone, architectural feature at the very top, another horizontal architectural feature in the middle separating the first and second story. The home is now much more compatible with this existing mature neighborhood. And staff agree with the changes that we have made. And we feel that what we're looking now is a much better proposal for this neighborhood, and the variances are much more acceptable at this point. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Beaumont. Any questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none. If there's no one who's called in with interest for this application, we'll take a motion.
There's no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Tlowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, so I'll start with a word of advice. Ms. Beaumont is a regular here. I'm sure we'll see her again. It would really help the committee, particularly with designs of this nature, if you submitted 3D renderings like many of the applicants do with their applications. It really helps the committee members understand the context of the building when that's provided. So I would highly recommend that you do so in the future. But Madam Chair, now having said that, with respect to this application, I would note that there's no opposition, and what we're dealing with today is a reduction in the previous variances that were requested and a redesign of the massing to make the building fit into the neighborhood. With those changes, I believe the application meets the test of the Planning Act. I don't think there will be an impact as a result of the variances. I would make the approval subject to the proposed dwelling being constructed in general accordance with the plans dated March 30th, 2023 as submitted, and that approval expires 2 years of decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Thank you, Mr. Tlowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah.
We have minutes to confirm for June the 14th. Would like to confirm those minutes. Thank you, Mr. Tlowski. And motion to adjourn. Mr. Dickey, thank you. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned at 8:29.